Welcome back everybody, my name is Nyne, and today I wanted to give you an early access review for the new Battle Royale game, Islands of Nyne. Islands of Nyne just released this past week on Steam in an early access alpha state, and despite the several uninspired Battle Royale clones we seem to be getting on a weekly basis, this one might actually be worth checking out. I feel this game does enough different that it could potentially become a real contender against other more established titles like PUBG and Fortnite. Islands of Nyne takes place in a futuristic sci-fi setting. You'll play as a human character trapped in a strange alien competition that pits a bunch of human characters against each other in a battle to the death. The weapons all resemble real-world weapons, but with a bit of a sci-fi appearance, and the map itself is probably one of the more unique and interesting maps I've seen in a Battle Royale game. The map is populated with various iconic landmarks, including a Roman Colosseum, an old medieval castle, and even a pirate ship. Players are dropped onto this arena without any weapons and are forced to scavenge for supplies and be the last man standing. The overall premise of the game is not unlike the other Battle Royale games out there, but what makes Islands of Nyne stand out is its strong focus on fast-paced gameplay. One thing that really helps to speed up the gameplay is the resource management. Weapon looting is a much more streamlined process, with weapon attachments automatically being equipped to the weapons you're holding. If you don't like how the game auto-attaches certain attachments, you can always open your inventory and place specific attachments on specific weapons. The menu reminds me a lot of the weapon modification system in older sci-fi games like Crysis. Ammo is simplified to just be universal rounds for certain weapon types, like assault rifle ammo or sniper ammo. Weight limits are non-existent, and instead, you're only really limited by a certain number of various items. This means it's worth loading up on any item you find, including ammo for weapons you're not currently holding, because it doesn't seem to negatively affect you in any way. You can hold 2 weapons of any type in your inventory, and can expand this limit to 3 if you find a special extra capacity device in the world. In addition to faster looting, the game's movement and traversal is also much smoother and encourages combat whenever possible. There's no way to go prone or lie on the ground, and the terrain is often empty enough that you won't be able to hide very well in tall grass or various debris. Maneuvering around the environment is also a more streamlined process. There's no fall damage, so you can easily jump off of high structures if you're forced to relocate. And there's a few points around the map with jump pads that will launch you high into the air to get onto elevated structures. These jump pads don't seem to work very consistently though, and I found myself bouncing off of objects or not landing where I intended. And then the zone itself restricts the play area much faster than in games like PUBG. On top of this, the current max player count is 50 per match, so rounds will end significantly faster. All of these are monumental changes to a well-established game formula and really help to make Islands of Nyne stand out on its own as a unique and interesting challenge. But it's not just the speed that makes this game more enjoyable. The actual gunplay and combat has a lot to appreciate. For one, the combat is more simplified and accessible. Now this may turn a lot of PUBG players off of this game, as the combat feels more like Call of Duty or Halo, but I personally find it a great change of pace. Instead of players exchanging gunfire with each other for minutes at a time, gun battles in Islands of Nyne end almost immediately thanks to the significantly faster pacing and lower time to kill. That being said, weapon balancing is terrible at the moment. The assault rifles are easily the most powerful guns in the game, especially the MK18. These assault rifles can be set to single shot mode and tap fired with barely any recoil penalty, and they have laser accuracy at long distances. They often can overtake players using the bolt-action sniper rifle at long ranges. The shotgun needs some serious work. It feels terribly weak at the moment, and the spread is too tight, making it an impractical weapon when compared to assault rifles and SMGs. I'm also not sure what purpose the game's suppressors serve, as they barely modify the sound and never seem to give me any noticeable advantage. If they're going to go this fast-paced route, I'd also like to see the knife become a deadlier weapon. There are several situations where I had a great jump on an enemy with a knife, but barely dealt any damage at all. I feel like the firearms in this game are powerful enough that they could bear to have a one-hit kill melee weapon for sneak attacks. There's several different armor pieces that need to be acquired around the map, including head, chest, leg, and arm pieces. If you manage to find enough pieces of armor, your HUD will be enhanced to show the nearest safe zone on your compass, which is a nice touch. There's also a special personal shield pickup that covers your character in a glowing electric field that stands out pretty badly at long distances. It seems to grant single shot protection, which is effective against a lone sniper that managed to line up a perfect headshot, but other than that, I saw no real benefit for this pickup. Armor seems to grant a few shots of protection, but as soon as your armor's gone, you can be killed with only a few shots. I think the game's damage modeling might be inconsistent with the overall game pace, and might need to be increased to allow players to get hit more often. I'm fine with a low time to kill in games, but if the game doesn't lend itself to this hardcore gameplay and instead encourages bunny hopping and consistent combat, then players need more hit points. Another change I'd like to see would be some hit indicators. Currently you get small notifications that tell you how much damage you've inflicted with certain shots, but it just feels inconsistent. I'd like to see something like a Call of Duty game or Battlefield where a registered shot with an enemy will give you a small X on your crosshair. Otherwise, there's a lot of confusion during firefights as to whether you hit an enemy. The game's already a very fast-paced, light-hearted shooter game, so I don't see any reason why this can't be an option at least. The initial starting jump can also be difficult to judge. The game lets you freefall and land wherever you want on the map just by aiming your viewpoint. But it takes a few seconds to see your map, since it's cleverly a hologram that appears over your arm, and you're given very little time to adjust your trajectory to land on the outer edges of the map. There's no parachutes in the game like other Battle Royales, as it instead opts for an epic superhero-style drop. But the problem with the lack of a parachute is it's difficult to determine where other players are landing nearby. I often had situations where I was shot as soon as I landed because I had no idea there was a player next to me. The best way to avoid this is to land in the outskirts or be lucky enough to land next to a good weapon in a dangerous location. But maybe some clear sound indicators or even a visible light on deploying players would help minimize the confusion. Aside from those few minor gripes though, the combat feels tight and satisfying. I never really felt like I was being killed unfairly, but instead, players were just better and faster shots than me. It's unclear how well the game's anti-cheat system works, but from the several matches I've played, I didn't run into anything that seemed suspicious. Islands of Nyne even includes a shooting range to practice with all the game's weapons. The pre-match warm-up allows players to participate in a Counter-Strike style gun game, or allows players to jump around on a difficult platforming course. Both of these minigames could be improved with various tweaks like better respawns, but they don't really affect the core experience, and it's just nice to see them implemented. They function as a great warm-up before the match, something that I wish games like PUBG featured. The gameplay in Islands of Nyne is probably one of the most polished Battle Royale experiences I've seen in early access, but the game's visuals and performance could benefit from some improvements. Now, in terms of performance, I personally have had no problems with my current configuration. I have the graphics all cranked up to the highest values at a 1440p resolution, and I generally get anywhere between 90 to 110 frames per second on average. The only real problem areas in terms of performance I've noticed were in the initial lobby area with players jumping all over the place, and the initial superhero drop where a circle of dirt erupts underneath the player and causes the frame rate to dip down into the mid-40s. Still, this doesn't really hurt the core gameplay experience, so it's not that big a deal. The visuals, on the other hand, do look lackluster and outdated. The game's screenshots are very misleading and don't tell the full story. Textures are dull and low res, lighting looks artificial, and shadow quality could use some work, especially inside buildings. The world, despite having a ton of unique structures, feels repetitive and weak. There just isn't enough terrain decoration to help hide the large empty valley floors between structures. The skybox looks cool and the water is passable, but character models, animations, textures, lighting, and shadows all need to be improved before the final release. Sound design could also use some improvements. There's nothing really wrong with it in its current state, but I'd like to have some more ambient sound effects added to the world and better positional sound design for other players. As it stands right now, you can hear players very easily through multiple walls walking around. It's too distinct and easy to hear nearby players, and while it may help drive players to combat more often, it also gives a huge advantage to players camping inside buildings. And that's all there really is to this game. Overall, I'm not disappointed with my experience. The game plays great and features a unique take on Battle Royale, with a more streamlined, fast-paced arcade shooter experience that might appeal to a different type of player than most fans of PUBG or even Fortnite. The game seems to reward skill more than lucky positioning and weapon spawns, though the weapon balancing will still need to be improved. Visuals aren't that impressive and performance could use some minor tweaks, but the game is a lot of fun to play. The only other concern I have is this game's player count, which was sitting at around 4,500 during peak hours on the weekend and has since dropped to 2,500. This is much better than the last game I reviewed, The Culling 2, which is currently empty on the PC by the way, but 2,500 is still not all that strong. Thankfully, matchmaking seems to work flawlessly each time I try, always connecting me to a group of 50-some players, and I never really had to wait long to get back into a match. Hopefully, with smart adjustments to gameplay, optimization, and good community management, Islands of Nyne could end up being a real Battle Royale contender. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos posted every week.